Superstation, the Future Radio. This is Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, April 7th, 2019, and we are live. Welcome to the African History Network show. We have a lot to talk about. Very, very busy 2 weeks because I was in Baltimore last weekend speaking at the 18th Annual Baltimore Natural Hair Care Expo. So a lot has happened since we were last on the air live. If you follow me on Facebook or follow me on YouTube, you see I've been doing a number of YouTube videos. I did a couple of them, 2 or 3 of them from Baltimore. And Sunday, March 31st, when I was preparing to come back to Detroit, I got the news that hip-hop artist and entrepreneur Nipsey Hussle was shot and killed, tragically shot and killed. So I've already done 2 Facebook Live broadcasts dealing with that. They're also on our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, I-M-H-O-T-E-P. So check those out on YouTube. And, you know, there's been more information that has come out. So I've done a number of Facebook Live broadcasts. Did one tonight on a different topic as well. So, so on tonight's show, we'll deal with a few different topics. We'll talk about Nipsey Hussle's life was changed when he went to Africa. He empowered his community through real estate, economic empowerment, and entrepreneurship and STEM. Okay, so we'll talk some about that. Then also, more information has come out about the Robert Mueller report, and we know that Attorney General William Barr did a 4-page summary. So last time we were on was March 24th. And, you know, that show is on YouTube. It's on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. It's on audio podcasts as well. Go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Click on the link. Listen to podcasts. We're on 8 different podcast platforms. And if you want to advertise with the African History Network show, email us at customerservice@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Customerservice@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. So when we were on last time, I talked about how I broke down the 4-page summary that Attorney General William Barr did of the Robert Mueller report, and I dealt with the problems in that summary. Okay, and now it has come out that you have some members of the Robert Mueller team, some of the investigators on the Robert Mueller team, who are saying that they are unhappy with the way that Attorney General Robert Mueller is characterizing the Mueller report. Some on Mueller's team say report was more damaging than Attorney General Barr has revealed. And this is what a lot of people suspected from the beginning. Okay, so we'll talk some about that as well. Because more information is coming out. We know that Representative Jerry Nadler, chair of the House Judiciary Committee, has subpoenaed the Mueller report. We found out that it is almost 400 pages without appendices, etc., without supporting information. So, I mean, this is going to be a real fight, okay? But, you know, this is an example of how elections have consequences. At least Democrats are in control of the House of Representatives. Okay, so shout out to everybody watching us on Facebook. Share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. And we'll talk some more about Nipsey Hussle tonight as well. Not to be confused with Nipsey Russell. All right. You know, what I find interesting is that, yeah, a lot of people putting out videos about Nipsey Hussle, and they just found out about him when he was killed. They never heard of him before he was shot and killed. I just find that interesting. Okay. All right. So we'll talk about... I'll continue to talk about Nipsey also, and the another good thing that is transpired from this tragedy is that the Bloods and the Crips in L.A. Had a meeting uniting and focusing on putting down the guns. Okay, BET.com had an article about this. Nipsey Hussle's death inspires unity meeting between LA gang members. Blavity.com also had an article about this. This came out today, actually. Okay, so these are some good things that are coming out of this tragedy. All right, and then also this is causing people to focus more on ownership, entrepreneurship, building up the community, buying up property in the community, etc. Okay, there was a video of Nipsey Hussle going back to 2006 of him talking about the need to buy property in the community, not focus on the gold, not focus on the platinum, not focus on the material things, but focus on acquiring land. All right, and this is something that this brother was doing as well. Okay, so we'll deal with those topics. And shout out to everybody watching us on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. Do you remember back in, I think it was 2015, do you remember the huge biker gang fight that took place in Waco, Texas? And you had 9 people killed. It was hundreds of grown people, grown men and women out there fighting, shooting, killing, things like this, right? You remember that? And then you saw coverage of it on MSNBC and CNN, and it died down, and you haven't heard anything about that. Well, we have an update on this case here, and you're not gonna believe this. We have an update on what's happening with the biker gang shootout, the biker club shootout. 9 people were killed. This is back in 2015. Okay, so we'll talk some about that as well. Now, many people listen to Reverend Al Sharpton's show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., Keeping It Real, Reverend Al Sharpton. And if you listen to the show, and he's nationally syndicated, so you hear him around the country. If you listen to the show, you know that they had their annual meeting that took place this past weekend. Okay, this past weekend. And many of the Democratic candidates were there at the annual meeting and their policy and strategy conference, and they took questions from the audience. And one of the questions that came up was about reparations and supporting H.R. 40. Okay, now we know that H.R. 40 was originally introduced in 1989 by Representative John Conyers from Detroit, and also Representative Sheila Jackson Lee has taken up the cause of H.R. 40, and H.R. 40 has been refashioned. And now that the Congressional Black Caucus is more powerful than ever, they have 55 members in the CBC, we see a renewed push for reparations and for H.R. 40. Okay, so we're going to talk some about how the momentum that H.R. 40 is gaining in Congress, as well as among Democratic presidential hopefuls. Now, we haven't heard anything from Donald Trump about reparations. Okay, and what we have to understand is that when we push these issues, we have to push it to Democrats and Republicans, not just Democrats. Push it to Democrats and Republicans. Now, we haven't heard anything from Trump about reparations, and you probably not, except a no. Okay, and this is an example, once again, of how elections have consequences. This is an example, once again, why Trump needs to be voted out of office. Okay, and also this is an example of how African Americans have to mobilize and vote, because you see what you're getting from Trump. He's reversing many of the policies, over 100 policies that President Obama had in place. Things are getting worse under Trump. So you see what you're getting from him. Okay, so and this is why there was rampant voter suppression in the 2016 election. You've heard me, if you watch this show, you heard me talk about this while the 2016 election was going on. I was reporting on the rampant voter suppression that was taking place. And I said we're going to need a record number of African Americans to come out and vote to stop Trump. People didn't want to listen. Look at what you have now. Also, this month, April 2019, is our 3rd year anniversary of broadcasting the African History Network show on 910 AM, the Superstation, WFDF. So we've been doing this show 3 years here, 9 years in total, 3 years on this radio station. Okay, so if you like the information we share with you, you can donate to the African History Network, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. That helps us to keep doing the research, finance the show, stay on the air, pay the bills, etc. paypal.me/the AHN show, or you can go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, click on the yellow donate button. Okay, now somebody on Facebook, Robert, said HR 40 is not enough. Nobody said it was enough. HR 40 is a huge start. You got people that don't even want to acknowledge the transatlantic slave trade existed. You have people who don't want to acknowledge the connection between conditions today and 246 years of slavery, which maldistributed wealth, power, and resources into the hands of the dominant white society. So nobody said HR 40 is enough, okay? But it's a huge start. All right. Now, and if you look at what happened, and I posted an article earlier today dealing with Florida, and April 26th in Florida is going to be was it Confederate Memorial Day or some crazy thing like that in Florida. Okay. Now we know Florida is a Republican state, a long history of racism and white supremacy in Florida. But as I explained to people, and I talked about this in one of my videos, I've done so many this past week, I can't remember which one I talked about it in. I think it was the one dealing with One United Bank has a new Queen debit Visa card in honor of black queens and the new generation of black queens. I just uploaded that on YouTube this afternoon. So go to our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. You'll see it there. Let's see. Okay. And so somebody on Facebook said, I voted for Obama, but do you think a lot for us? Do you think he did a lot for us? Okay, so people, for the like 100th time, go to whitehouse.gov and search for progress of the African-American community under the Obama administration. You'll be surprised at the policies from President Obama that positively impacted the African-American community. That's still at whitehouse.gov. Trump has not taken it down. It was up there during his second term. People, you know, unfortunately, we don't do research. And I found out about it from Reverend Al Sharpton's radio show. Because Andre Michael Egglesheim, who used to guest host the show, and Andre Michael Egglesheim just passed away a few months ago, he was the first one I heard that mentioned this document that listed all these policies from the Obama administration that positively impacted African Americans. So I went to whitehouse.gov, downloaded it, and I use it in a lot of my lectures. Okay? For instance, the Affordable Health Care Act. Most people don't know that the Affordable Health Care Act gave health care to 3 million non-elderly African Americans who did not already have health care. Which the 3 million non-elderly African Americans who did not already have health care got health care because of the Affordable Health Care Act. And what this does is helps to positively impact people financially, because the number one reason why people go bankrupt is because of medical bills. So if you can get affordable health care, you can get preventive maintenance. And then also under President Obama, we saw the life expectancy for African Americans reach its highest point in history as well. Go read that document, Progress of the African American Community under the Obama administration, is at whitehouse.gov. What's whitehouse.gov? Official website of the White House. All types of transcripts of speeches from the president, all types of press releases are there, right there at whitehouse.gov. Take advantage of it. Your taxpayer dollars pay for it. So there was an article from Newsweek.com. Newsweek.com. And this article deals with how in Florida you're going to have this Confederate Memorial Day on April 26th. And see, what people have to understand, and what I caution people about, is that if you want to get something tangible from the whole reparations fight, we have to approach this strategically, not emotionally. We have to understand how to make a legal argument for reparations, not an emotional argument for reparations. And making a legal argument goes beyond YouTube videos and documentaries. It actually deals with digging into the history, understanding law, and making a legal argument. But at the same time, you're going to have a massive history lesson for America, because most Americans are ignorant of history. And this is a huge, huge problem. Okay? So, the article, there was an article from thehill.com. There's an article from thehill.com dealing with the fight for reparations and how it's gaining steam in Congress. And what I did was I saw it on thehill.com's Facebook page. So what I did was, because it's a white publication, and it's a good article, I looked at some of the comments that were there. Most of the comments were from white people. And these are some of the most ignorant ass comments you ever want to see. You can tell they have no understanding of history. And one of the ways that you can tell they don't understand history is that a lot of them think the Confederate flag that was on the Dukes of Hazzard car, the General Lee, They think that's the Confederate flag. That's the Confederate battle flag of Northern Virginia under General Robert E. Lee's army. There were 3 flags that flew over the Confederate States of America from 1861 to 1865. That flag was not one of them. So when you understand the fight for reparations has to pass through Congress based upon Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution that most people haven't read, because most people haven't read the Constitution or don't understand it. Donald Trump is one of them. It's not going to come from an executive order from the president, because that's a violation of Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution that gives the power of the purse strings to Congress. When you understand that it has to get 218 votes in the House of Representatives and 60 votes most likely in the U.S. Senate, then you understand the uphill battle that we have to engage in. And America needs a massive history lesson. You listen to 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. This is Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, guys, stand by. We'll be back in a couple minutes here. How's everybody doing? We got Mass. Please give the made of the document. The name of the document, Max? African American Resistance in, I'm sorry, no, that's a lecture I did. It is Progress of the African American Community under the Obama administration. That's at whitehouse.gov. You can Google that. Progress of the African American Community under the Obama administration. Okay, you can Google that. All right, and we'll post a link right here on the thread of the broadcast also. I do a lecture called African American Resistance in the Era of Donald Trump, Voter Suppression, Reparations, and How Elections Have Consequences. And I go in depth into this. And I deal with how Trump is systematically reversing policies that President Obama had in place. And these are policies most people don't even know existed. Okay? All right. All right. Okay, who else we have here?
Thank you for calling.
Okay, we got Michael. We need to educate our community. Absolutely, we need to educate our communities. Absolutely.
All right, Chris. Thank you for calling. I'll put you on hold. All right.
Absolutely, we need to educate our communities.
30 seconds.
All right, I got to send you this clip, man. It's gonna be my lead clip right here. Computer was freezing up on me, so I'm running behind here. Let's shoot this off to you. All right, who else we have? Gregory, how you doing, Greg?
10 seconds.
Okay, I'm gonna send you this clip here.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, April 7th, 2019, and we're live. Hope everybody's doing well. We're back from the commercial break. All right, so we have a jam-packed show tonight. So on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the show. We deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word KEMET, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word KEMET, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Also go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, so we're celebrating the 3rd year anniversary of us broadcasting the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation. We've been in this time slot for 3 years. And you can donate to the African History Network, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show, okay? All right, so before we jump in and deal with and talk about Nipsey Hussle and talk some about his legacy, give you a little background information on him, and talk about how Nipsey Hussle going to Eritrea, which is the homeland of his father, because he was half Eritrean and half African American, how that changed his life when he went to Eritrea for 3 months back in 2004. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's get some of these calls quickly here. Let's go to Chris, line 1. Hey, Chris, welcome to the African History Network show. Tell us where you're calling from.
Is that Chris? It's Esprit.
Okay, what's your name?
Esprit.
Esprit. Okay, it says Chris here. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Tell us where you're calling from.
Detroit.
From Detroit. Okay, go ahead with your question or comment.
Okay. In your introduction to your program, you talked about reparations, and and how John Congress and Congress is trying to push that as a public policy. Now, my question is, if it were to happen, period, like you can snap your fingers and it were to happen, how would the equal distribution of resources transpire? And I would like to hear your opinion on that.
Okay, thanks for your call. So when we look at H.R. 40, it's not a bill to distribute reparations, it's a bill to study reparations. The distribution is one thing that needs to be studied, and it has to be crafted as a law so the bill can actually pass the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. Now, one of the best ways, now I'm totally against the majority of reparations being in the form of a check. The reason why is because we all got $1 million a day. White people have it all back this time next week, and you would not have accomplished anything except stimulated their economy. Okay. Now, if you study the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties of 1866, which is probably our best chance to get any type of reparations, the reason why is because those treaties are still on the books for the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Cherokee, and Seminole Indians. And some of our ancestors were in those treaties after the Civil War ends, and they got land. They got they became members of the various Native American nations. They got land, and this later translated into free taxes, free college tuition, etc. Okay, you have land giveaways like the Dawes Allotment Act of 1887. When you study Sarah Rector, who lived in Oklahoma, and her family was of former slave Creek ancestry. Okay, former slave Creek ancestry, because the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Cherokee, and Seminole Indians all owned African slaves. When we look at the compensation that these Indian treaties give these what are called the 5 civilized tribes of Native Americans today, it translates into free college tuition, free taxes, no taxes, tax exempt, free radio station licenses, TV station licenses, etc. They were compensated with some land also. Now, we do understand that, Native Americans have various problems, high alcoholism, etc. But when you look at something like that, and then also the other thing was those former slaves that those 5 civilized tribes of Native Americans owned, those former slaves who became known as Black freedmen, they were given full citizenship in those tribes also. So that was their nationality as well. That is something more tangible, okay? And if you study Tulsa, Oklahoma, see, all this ties into the history of Tulsa, Oklahoma, because where Black Wall Street is, or was, where Black Wall Street was, Tulsa, Oklahoma was founded by Creek Indians around 1836. Because the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Cherokee, and Seminole Indians all got pushed off of their land in 1830 because of the Indian Removal Act of 1830, which kicked them off their land in southeastern United States, Georgia, Alabama, areas like this. And they're all pushed, they all go out west on over 1,000 miles, which was known as the Trail of Tears. When they go out west, they all go into Oklahoma. They take their African slaves with them, their black slaves with them. Now, some people make the debate, oh, well, they were servants, etc. They weren't slaves. Well, what we do know is when the Civil War came, 1861 to 1865, all 5 civilized tribes of Native Americans fought on behalf of the South to maintain slavery, because they all owned slaves and they didn't want to give it up. Okay, In Vogue said, give it up, turn it loose. They didn't want to give it up and turn it loose. Okay, so these are laws that are still on the books today. And I believe in going after low-hanging fruit first. And if you deal with enforcing the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties for those that qualify for it, and then later expanding it, it allows you to navigate around dumbass people that don't understand history. Then you got to sit up and argue with them. No, we're talking about enforcing the laws that are already in the books. These laws are still on the books. We don't understand history. And if you don't understand history, don't understand law, you don't understand the laws that need to still be enforced. So many of our ancestors got illegally pushed out of the treaties in 1941 when the U.S. government conspired with the 5 civilized tribes of Native Americans to redefine what a Native American was. So then they stated that you had to have 1/4 or 1 quantum Native American blood, but those treaties did not state that. Okay? But see, if you don't understand history and law, then you don't understand that that's something that needs to be fought for and enforced. Okay? So I believe in going after low-hanging fruit. All right, speaking of reparations, then we'll go to Tony in just a second, line 2. The 30th Annual National Cobra Convention 2019 is taking place. Now, in Cobra, now you got a lot of people that just jumped into the fight for reparations, and Cobra's been involved in fighting for reparations for decades. Okay? So, you know, welcome to the resistance for people that just started fighting for reparations like this year, last year. But when you jump into a movement, you got to understand the history of the movement. You got to study people like Reparations Ray Jenkins and Queen Mother Moore, John Conyers, okay, Dr. Ron Daniels, okay. These are people been involved. Dr. Ron Daniels has been involved in the fight for 50 years. Okay, so you can't just jump in a movement thinking you invented the movement. All right, you can't just jump in the movement thinking you invented the movement. You have to go study the people who came before you. So, 400 years of terror, a debt still owed. This is the 30th Annual National Cobra Convention 2019. This is taking place at Timbuktu Academy of Science and Technology, located at 10800 East Canfield Street in Detroit, 10800 East Canfield Street in Detroit, Michigan. 48214 is the zip code, if you need that. It's taking place Thursday, June 20th through Sunday, June 23rd, 2019, okay? For more information, call, the local contact is 313-399-8797, 313-399-8797. National contact 202-643-1460, 202-643-1460. Yours truly would definitely be there. Visit their website, ncobraonline.org, NCOBRA online.org, ncobraonline.org for more information. All right. Okay, let's go back to the phone lines. Let's go to Tony, line 2. Welcome to the African History Network show. Tony, thanks for holding. Tell us where you're calling from.
Detroit, Westside. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, go ahead.
I appreciate you breaking it down as far as the Native American treaties. That's deep, and that's something that we need to study and focus and research.
And Dr. Claude Anderson is one who's been fighting to enforce those treaties for years also. He sued the U.S. government. But it has to be a massive movement. It can't just be him and a few people. It has to be a massive movement to push this. Go ahead.
Exactly. I want to know your thoughts on, okay, first and foremost, of course, what you just stated as far as approaching reparations. But what do you think about those corporations who directly benefited, who owned slave ships, who insured slaves, being a part of the reparations, and of course the government.
Right.
But all of those people that it can be documented, proven, you have receipts
right.
on the slave owners, those plantations. I mean, do you think that has credibility on a legal status level?
I think it has some credibility, but you're going to, well, what we have seen recently is we've seen universities who've come out and acknowledged the role that their university played in slavery, whether it's Georgetown, Harvard, etc. And they've pushed to make some type of amends to those direct descendants of, like, Georgetown. So I forgot how many hundreds of enslaved Africans, okay, at one point. So they work to give some type of compensation to those descendants of the slaves that they own. Not everybody that was a slave at one point. Okay, not the descendants of anybody who was a slave, but specifically those enslaved Africans that they owned. Okay, their descendants. Okay. All right. So there were a number of corporations. So that can be part of it. That's more of an uphill battle dealing with the corporations. So there's some corporations that don't exist. There's some that still exist. One of them is the New York Life Insurance Company. The New York Life Insurance Company started out as the Nautilus Mutual Life Insurance Company in the spring of 1845 in Manhattan. And in their first 3 years, part of the policies they sold were on enslaved Africans on the plantation. Now, they have been upfront with this history, okay? Whereas other insurance companies have not been so upfront with the history. So you can do that. It's more of an uphill battle because you are, if you have corporations that want to be upfront and acknowledge it and make amends, that's something you can do. If you have those that want to play dumb, right, it's more of an uphill battle. The reason why is because it's a harder case to make. The reason why is because we don't have any living survivors of slavery. So it's your generations removed from that. You don't have anybody to tell those firsthand accounts. Okay, I don't think it's impossible, but at the same time, I like going after low-hanging fruit first. Okay, so if you have corporations, and I'll come back to you just a second. If you have the corporations that are upfront about it and acknowledge the role that they played, you want to probably deal with those first. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead. I heard you trying to say something else. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, what about the government? What approach would you take
toward
those laws that were in effect?
That's extremely important. That's extremely important. This is the most important thing here. Okay. The most important thing is dealing with March 2nd, 1807, when the U.S. outlawed the international slave trade. Go to history.com, official website of the History Channel, and read their article they have on Congress abolishing the international slave trade. They passed that law March 2nd, 1807. It went into effect January 1st, 1808. Britain did the same thing. Now, what this did was this made it illegal to bring Africans into this country and enslave them. This made it illegal. So prior to that, and this is why I try to explain to people, this is why you have to understand law. Some people don't like this, okay? But prior to 1808, all the Africans that were brought into this land and made slaves, even though it was morally wrong, it was legal. It was legal. So hold on just a second. We got to understand legal arguments. See, this is the difference between doing a YouTube video about reparations and actually getting a law passed. The law is based upon law. It ain't based upon emotion. Prior to 1808, go read the laws. It was all legal. So you're going to have an uphill battle trying to get compensation for something that was legal. It was wrong. It was morally wrong, but it was legal. We're not going to the court of morality. We're dealing with law. And this is what a lot of people don't want to come to the realization of. And I'm not one to play with our people's emotions. I'm going to tell you straight up. I'm going to tell you straight up what it is. I don't play those games. I'm not playing with people's emotions. You got some people that mean well, but talking about they owe us $14 trillion. Let me ask you a simple question, Tony. You ever studied the history of slavery in this country?
Of course.
Where did you read that slaves were supposed to be paid? I'll wait.
I don't know.
So what I'm trying to exactly. Now, it's hard for many people to come to that realization. But this is why we have to understand the difference between YouTube video debates on reparations and actually making a legal argument to actually get a bill passed in the House of Representatives. It takes 218 votes to get a bill passed in the House of Representatives. I ain't talking about debating on YouTube. I'm talking about actually getting something tangible. There are 435 members of the House of Representatives. It takes 218 votes to get anything passed. There are 100 members of the U.S. Senate. When it comes to things dealing with the budget and paying something out, you're going to most likely need 60 votes instead of 51. Now, that's real talk. A lot of people don't want to have that conversation. Go ahead.
Okay, I got a question for you. What do you think black people, American people in general, would think about what the tremendous amount of foreign aid that the U.S. gives to multiple countries, and what it's actually used for, and it's our taxpayer dollars? What do you think the American people, black people, would think about that? And you can't get clean water in Flint, or any type of redress for horrendous conditions that we've been.
See, the difference is that you dealing with nations. Nations do business with nations. This is something that Professor Kaba Khamenei talked about in the documentary Black Friday. Nations do business with nations. Nations operate based upon treaties. When you've been stripped of a nationality, now many of us claim the nationality of American, but hell, it's America that helped put us in this predicament. So you're at a disadvantage when you deal with Flint, Michigan. Now, what I find very interesting, right, is Donald Trump has barely said anything. I don't think he said anything since he's been in office about Flint, Michigan. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt to say barely, right? But that's because the governor of Flint, Michigan was a Republican, okay, Rick Snyder. Now, if that governor had been a Democrat, he'd be talking about Flint, Michigan like he talks about Chicago. Okay, so what you're dealing with is understanding how nations do business with nations, and a lot of African Americans disagree with a lot of the aid that goes to countries, but at the same time, if you understand,
$3 billion to Israel.
Yeah. Well, you know why? Because Jews vote and they leverage their dollars to push their agenda. That's why. If you go research, you know who Sheldon Adelson is?
No.
Sheldon Adelson is one of the biggest donors to Donald Trump. Sheldon Adelson helped to heavily finance Donald Trump's presidential campaign. Sheldon Adelson, so Donald Trump just spoke to a group of Jews. Sheldon Adelson is sitting up there with a red yarmulke on that says Trump. So they leverage. Number one, they vote. Number two, they leverage their economics, and maybe not the same order, but they leverage their economics to push their agenda. Sheldon Adelson leveraged his economics. Okay, he's a billionaire. He leveraged his economics to push his political agenda. I ain't saying it's right. I'm saying that's what happened. Okay. Now at the same time, African Americans had the votes to stop Trump. We ain't realizing 2016. Most of us don't realize it now. We invented math, but we don't understand math. We invented math, but we don't understand math. We don't understand. Wait a second. There were 16.4 million African Americans registered to vote in 2016. 59.6% voted. That was a 7 percentage point drop from 2012, when 66.6% of African Americans who were registered to vote voted. Donald Trump won Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania by 78,000 votes. If African Americans in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania voted at the same level in 2016 that they voted in 2012, Trump would not be president right now. We had the votes to stop Trump. People talking about the Electoral College, but can't explain to you how the Electoral College works. They weren't dealing with the rampant voter suppression that was taking place in 2016 to suppress the vote in key battleground states. This is what I was reporting on in 2016 on my national radio show, the Michael Imhotep show, and on this station as well. Go ahead, and then I got to get to Aiden.
I was just going to say, there were vote swapping just for the hell of it with millennials to manipulate the vote as well. It was a whole lot of documentaries about that.
Vote swapping. What do you mean by vote? What do you mean by vote swapping?
Okay, so I don't care if Hillary or
you got the clip I sent you.
My candidate.
Check your email.
So I will swap you to vote.
Yeah, I got it.
If you don't vote for this one, and I'll tell you I'll vote for this one.
I mean, I don't understand. Give me an example. What do you mean? I'm not familiar with vote swapping.
Okay, so it's a documentary. It was on PBS. It was real interesting.
What's the name of the documentary?
So, oh my God. See, this just popped up.
Who was in it? Was Greg Palast? Was investigative reporter Greg Palast in the documentary?
See, I don't remember. I can't.
Okay, because he put out a documentary called "The Best." He put out a documentary called, I think it's "The Best Democracy Money Can Buy." Investigative reporter Greg Palast, and Joanne Reed has interviewed him before a few times on AM Joy. But go ahead.
So, you know what? I'll look it up because I don't really like putting stuff out there.
Right.
It just popped up in
Thank you for
my
calling
head.
910.
We were talking about manipulation and votes.
All right. Well, Google it and call me back. Google it and call me back. All right. All right. Thanks, Tony.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay. Let's go to Aiden, line 1. Aiden, welcome to the African History Network show. Tell us where you're calling from. Thanks for holding.
I'm calling from Detroit, Michigan.
Okay. Go ahead, man. Thanks for
I
holding.
like to make a prediction based on history itself.
Okay.
Because of the type of cognitive mindset that we're dealing with, they are adversaries, our enemies. If they decide, it's not what we want or what we claim we should get, that if they decide to give us anything or pay us anything, they will definitely make sure that it is a benefit of theirs. By them knowing the hunger we have in this day and time, they may give us a little something, and we're going to have the masses of our culture just take it. And after that, that discussion will never ever be upheld again. Now, if anything, we can beat them through just their Bible itself. It all depends on who will do the speaking. But this is what I predict.
Okay.
Whatever they give us, it's going to be what they decide, not what we figured out.
Okay. All right. Thanks for calling.
All right.
Okay. That's why we have to be smarter than that, and not fall for the okie doke. Okay. Let's see here. All right. So let's talk about Nipsey Hussle for a few minutes, and then we'll continue this on the other side of the break as well, and then we'll go back to the phone lines. Calling numbers 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. Okay. So a lot of people called in. The topic of reparations was going to be one of the topics in the second hour, but people called in. They want to talk about that in the first hour. Okay, so we'll move some things around. All right. So Nipsey Hussle was shot and killed Sunday, March 31st. And I was on my way back from Baltimore, preparing to come back from Baltimore. And I got the news. I saw an article from thegrio.com and got the news. Now, NBCnews.com, there were a number, I've read probably 50 articles dealing with Nipsey. We posted a lot of them on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. NBCnews.com has a really good article. Nipsey Hussle's commitment was to his LA neighborhood where he had big plans. Nipsey Hussle's commitment was to his LA neighborhood where he had big plans, okay? And one of the things they talk about here, and I did 2 videos dealing with this. Go to our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP on YouTube, and you can watch the videos I did. But back in 2006, Nipsey Hussle was at Russell Simmons' Get Your Money Right Summit. And we know Russell Simmons, brother to Rev Run of Run DMC. And Nipsey Hussle spoke plainly about leaving behind the material things synonymous with hip-hop lifestyle, the diamonds, the flashy cars, to secure the financial future of his family and people in his community as well. And we know that in 2004, he went to Eritrea, the homeland of his father. Eritrea is right next to the Sudan and Ethiopia. Eritrea used to be part of Ethiopia as well. Now, on MSNBC, they did a segment dealing with Nipsey Hussle on Velshi and Rule. Let's go to this clip. turn up in here so they can hear on Facebook.
Welcome back to Velshi and Rule. Today, rapper Nipsey Hussle was supposed to meet with LA police leaders to discuss how to curb the city's paralyzing gang violence problem. Instead, fans are now mourning the rapper, the icon, who was killed in a shooting just outside his clothing store yesterday.
Hussle's album, Victory Lap, was nominated for a Grammy this year, but his impact in the Los Angeles community went far beyond his music. He invested in educational programs, developed his own store, and even helped rebuild his neighborhood's deteriorating infrastructure. As the LA Times details, he was known to buy shoes for students. He repaved basketball courts, he freshened up playgrounds, he provided jobs and shelter for the homeless, and he paid for funerals for those who struggled to bury their loved ones.
A true leader. MSNBC's Tremaine Lee joins us now. Tremaine, this is a terribly tragic story. Can you walk us through not just his life's work in terms of art, but what he meant to the community? Because there are a lot of very successful artists, athletes out there who have foundations, who give. But they give from a high perch, and he never left his neighborhood.
They call him Neighborhood Nip, right? Because he stayed in his community. Once he got money, once he got fame, he never fled. And his legacy, and this is the part that I think is very interesting, it's a very specific kind of black power and black empowerment, right? He talked early on, years ago as a younger man, about the institutions around the community and how they take money but never put anything back in. We all know the stats. When you put $1 in the black community, it circulates for a few hours. It never stays because the ownership, they don't live in this community. But he wanted to change things, right? So we talked about the appreciation of jewelry, right? And how important it is aesthetically, but invest in real estate. And so sadly, one of the most perverse things about his death is that he was shot down in a plaza that he had a store that he was helping to redevelop in this community. And that's why it matters. And so while you have a much younger generation talking about clubbing and partying and popping Molly and different drugs, he was talking about some of those things because that's his community. But he was talking about the importance of legacy and wealth building, right? And the language he was using, we just don't hear from so many rappers.
He said in an interview with the LA Times last year, in our culture, there's a narrative that says, follow the athletes, follow the entertainers. And that's cool, but there should be something that says, follow Elon Musk, follow Zuckerberg. I think that with me being influential as an artist and young and coming from the inner city, it makes sense for me to be one of the people that's waving that flag.
I think we actually have the sound of him actually talking about the importance of STEM education, something he never had the opportunity to have. Watch this.
We recently opened up an inner city co-work space in the vein of we work for local entrepreneurs. You know what I mean? And we got I think 8 entrepreneurs that all have products in the tech space that are in the building with us. And we also have a science, technology, engineering, and math center on the 2nd level for young kids to be able to get trained in the skill set that it takes to get into Silicon Valley.
What's amazing is that he was able to provide for his community in a way without having to be oppressed by the white gaze. He has his tattoos, he has his beard, he has his jewelry. I am from the community, but I am giving back. And
what's the white gaze? The
white gaze, you're concerned about how white people are viewing you. You have to straighten up. You have to be respectable. You have to throw on your tie and your shirt to be appreciated and respected. He never had to do that. He said, let's go back and buy the block. Let's own it. But he also talked, and he was a very intellectually nimble young man, about the power of race and racism and symbolism. And he wanted to change the narrative. And again, you simply don't see that. And he was able to do that with his authentic self, the good, the bad, the ugly. But he knew that his community loved him and he loved his community. And that's what was so refreshing. And that's what's so sad about what happened. And not to liken him at all to Malcolm X, at all. But when Malcolm X was eulogized by the actor Ossie Davis and called him our shining black prince because he represents a black manhood, this was the next generation of that. Right? There's so much mess and so much materialism. And he was talking about, you want power? Let's buy the block. He talked about he talked about when he was young, hustling in the parking lot of a store where the owner of a hamburger shop removed the seats because he didn't want anyone sitting in there. He bought that shop, and now that man pays him rent. That's empowerment. And that's what's amazing. That's why so many people are heartbroken today, because he represented this next step in the game, empowerment and ownership.
Heartbroken, but also inspired by an extraordinary life that he lived.
Nipsey Hussle.
All right. Okay, so that was from MSNBC, Velshi and Rule. That was from April 1st, 2019, how Nipsey Hussle used his fame to promote education and communities. Check that out at msnbc.com. I know we're coming up on a break. We'll continue this discussion. We'll also talk about a article that came out today from Blavity.com, and BET.com had one as well. The Bloods and the Crips united in a monumental peace rally in the wake of Nipsey Hussle's death. We know Nipsey Hussle was a member of the 60s neighborhood, rolling 60s neighborhood Crips. But you have Bloods and Crips coming together. Rival Los Angeles gangs hosted a peace rally, bringing the community together and honoring rapper Nipsey Hussle's life in wake of his tragic death. Gangs from Watts, Compton, Inglewood, and Los Angeles met on Friday afternoon. That would have been April 5th, to take part in a rally for peace. The Sun Times reports the Bloods and the Crips, notorious foe gangs, marched in the rally. Nipsey Hussle was formerly a member of the Rolling 60s Crips. Okay. Now, according to TMZ, the Friday march will only be the start of a longer, more prolonged peace. The Friday march will only be the start of a longer, more prolonged peace. Gang leaders reportedly called for gangs to put down their weapons and cease fire in an attempt to honor the late rapper's legacy. The march started at Crenshaw grocery store and ended up at Nipsey Hussle's Marathon clothing store. Okay, so we'll post this article on our Facebook. Well, it's already on our fan page. The African History Network is gone viral. We'll post this on the thread of the broadcast. And also when we come back, we'll continue talking a little bit more about Nipsey Hussle. Then we'll also continue our discussion dealing with reparations and how the H.R. 40 has gained momentum in Congress. The Congressional Black Caucus has more members than ever before. They have more power than ever before. They're 55 members, and we see a number of members of the Congressional Black Caucus pushing H.R. 40. Then also remember the Waco biker gang shootout that took place in 2015 when 9 people were killed? You ain't gonna believe what's happening with that now. 9:10 a.m. the Superstation and Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep, the African History Network show. We'll be back in a few minutes.
You've decided to go to college. That's cool.
All right, guys, stand by. We'll be back in 4 minutes. Calling numbers 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600 is the call-in number. All right. So the topics I sent you, you have to put that into the Facebook Live broadcast when we're done with the show, or can you do it now?
No, I already did it.
Oh, you already did it? Okay, cool. Yeah. Thanks. All right. Okay, how's everybody doing? Okay, we've got Mo. Who we have here? Okay, let's see here. Eric Toomer, I hope they can come together for longer than a few hours and do some good and honor Nipsey. Well, they've been this took place on Friday, so they've come together longer than a few hours. Okay, I gotta send you these other clips here. Let's see here. What's the next clip? How's everybody doing? All right. We got Eric. Everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. All right. So we're going to talk about the Mueller report. Attorney General William Barr. It has come out that the Mueller report, the summary of the Mueller report, the actual Mueller report was more damaging than the summary that Attorney General William Barr, handpicked by Donald Trump, revealed. Okay, we're going to talk some about that also. Okay, and then let's go to this one also here. Clip 3. I think this is all we'll have time for because this blew up. Oh, you know what? Clip 3. 4. Okay, also we're going to talk about American schools can't figure out how to teach children slavery, with recent instances of mock slave auctions and a monopoly-like role-playing game. See, this ties into reparations as well. This ties into that history of reparations also. Okay. Okay, so we gotta fire up these clips as well. Okay, so we got clip 2, clip 3. Now, I did an extensive, about an hour and a half video dealing with this topic of how, just recently, last couple of weeks, how American schools incorrectly teach the history of slavery. Go to our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP, and watch that video there, okay? Because I broke down this information. All right. Is that clip? Okay, that's clip 4. What the hell is this?
910 AM Superstation isn't just any station. We're your station. So tell us what you just saw, what you feel, and what you want.
Okay, stand by, guys. I gotta have to get these clips ready for the second hour of the show.
30 seconds.
All right.
We're the hottest station in town. Whatever you need, it's right here on 910 AM Superstation. The most
Okay, I just emailed you these clips, man. It's about 6 clips, like 5 or 6 clips I emailed you. Stand by, guys. We're about to come back.
10 seconds.
You're listening to 910 AM Superstation.
The best in the city.
WFDF Farmington Hills, Detroit. 910 AM Superstation, a division of Adele Media.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation of Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, April 7th, 2019. This is our first time broadcast live in 2 weeks. I was speaking in Baltimore last Sunday at the 18th Annual Baltimore Natural Hair Care Expo. So shout out to everybody who came out to see me and came to the 2 workshops I did dealing with great African women, great African women in history, the mothers of civilization, and the role of black women in the film Black Panther. Okay, and then this past week I've been doing a number of videos trying to get caught up on some topics. So visit our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. The African History Network, click on videos. There you can watch the videos I did, and they're also on our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP on YouTube, okay? All right, 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. Right before the break, we were talking some about Nipsey Hussle. I did 2 videos this past week dealing with Nipsey Hussle and his legacy as well. So you can watch those on our YouTube channel and our Facebook fan page also. We're also talking some about reparations and how Reparations Bill HR 40 is gaining momentum in Congress, especially among the Congressional Black Caucus members, and then also among the a lot of the Democratic hopefuls for president as well. Okay, it's gaining a lot of momentum there. Also, we know this past weekend, I think it wrapped up yesterday. Reverend Al Sharpton's, the National Action Network's annual conference took place, and many of the Democratic presidential hopefuls were there, and a number of different questions were posed to them dealing with issues pertaining to the African American community, how their policies will help African Americans specifically, and all of them were posed the question dealing with reparations as well in HR 40. So we'll talk some more about that here in the second hour. All right. If we look at Nipsey Hussle as well for a few more minutes, NBCnews.com had a really good article. Nipsey Hussle's commitment was to his LA neighborhood, where he had big plans. Okay, now this is from April 2nd, 2019. April 2nd, 2019. And then the LA Times had a good article from today, April 7th, 2019. Nipsey Hussle had a vision for South LA. It all started with a trip to Eritrea. And this deals with the impact that him going to his father's homeland of Eritrea, which is right next to Ethiopia, the impact that it had on Nipsey Hussle, and it caused him to change his mindset and become a community activist, change his values, etc. Okay, so if we go back to this article from NBCnews.com, then we'll go back to the phone lines. We'll go to Joe and One in just a minute here. And I thought John was on the phone lines as well. So John, if you called in, call back in. At the 2006 Russell Simmons Get Your Money Right Summit, this may have been Nipsey Hussle's first interview, okay, public interview. He was asked by hip-hop journalist Davey D, how come you're not blinging and having all kind of crazy diamonds and all that, okay? And Nipsey Hussle responded, I'd rather invest in some real estate So Davey D asked him, so you're trying to get land? He said, exactly, homie. A real asset to take care of my people. Okay. So his real name was Ermeus Asadam. Okay. It's spelled Ashgedon. Ermeus Asadam. The G is silent. And I watched the interview that he did, I think it was March of 2018 on 97.9, the Vida Loca show. Okay, I think it's in New York or somewhere. So I watched the entire interview, and he pronounced his name, okay? And he said that, now he didn't know the meaning of his name, okay? So he said that his name means God will rise. God will rise. But the name could also mean sent by God. There's an article from heavy.com, which deals with, I think it was 5 facts about Nipsey Hussle. And they looked at some different websites that tell you what your name means. So it could either mean God will rise. His first name, Ermeus. It's spelled E-R-M-I-U-S, but it's pronounced A-I-R-M-E-U-S, Ermeus. So it either means God will rise or sent by God, okay? So we know he was shot and killed Sunday in Los Angeles in front of his apparel store, Marathon Clothing. Tributes and condolences from celebrities, politicians, and fans poured in, with many people remembering him for his commitment to his community in South Los Angeles. Since the beginning of his hip-hop career, he has always represented the Crenshaw district, specifically the intersection of Crenshaw Boulevard and Slauson Avenue. His 2005 debut mixtape was titled Slauson Boy, and his 8th mixtape was titled Crenshaw in 2010. So 2018, Victory Lap, which was his first studio album or CD on a major label, came out. All right. Before that, he just had mixtapes. Okay. So he was nominated for a Grammy for Best Rap Album. We know Cardi B won. Some people didn't like that. I'm not going to go there with that one. It's a whole nother show, whole nother conversation. All right. But many people have found out about Nipsey Hussle, have found out about his entrepreneurial prowess, etc., since last Sunday. Okay. Now, I knew more about his entrepreneurial prowess than him being a hip-hop artist, because I saw a video 2 or 3 months ago, something like this, from one of the local news affiliates there in the Los Angeles area, South Los Angeles area. And it was talking about him buying the strip that the Marathon Clothing store was in. It was talking about him getting involved in STEM and being involved in the Vector 90 incubator for businesses, and financing an initiative to teach STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math to African American and Hispanic students. Okay, so I already knew about him, and I heard about him years before. I remember I was interviewing Professor Griff, and I heard him mention Nipsey Hussle. Okay, but I knew more about Nipsey Hussle for his entrepreneurship prowess, as opposed to his hip hop music. Okay, but I was familiar with some of his hip hop music as well. Now, he was also called Neighborhood Nip, as you heard in the clip from MSNBC. So now the Marathon Clothing store sits at the Crenshaw-Slauson intersection, one of the main hubs for business in South LA. The apparel shop is a smart store that uses an app so customers can see exclusive content from the rapper. Nipsey Hussle enlisted the help of a software engineer named Idris Sandu, S-A-N-D-U, to create the app. Now, this brother is Ghanaian. He's Ghanaian American, okay? And this brother created the app for the store after a chance meeting at a Starbucks store a couple of years ago. So Nipsey sees Idris Sandu, not Idris Elba, okay? No, ladies, don't call in, okay? Idris Sandu, okay? So Nipsey sees Idris sitting at a table in Starbucks, and he's working on algorithms, okay? And Nipsey sees what he's doing. He starts talking to him about that, and they spark up a friendship. And then Idris ends up building an app for the Marathon Clothing store, okay? Now, Idris Sandu told NBC Black, which is NBC News, they have different platforms. They have NBC Latino, NBC Asian American, also NBC Black. He said, quote, Nipsey is the reason many people know me today. And to hear that his life was taken in front of the very store we built together is truly a full circle moment, which aches for me personally as well as for the culture. Grateful for the light he saw in me years ago, I vow to continue pushing forward the culture with the very platform he gave me. Now, in February 2019, Nipsey Hussle and his business partner David Gross bought the entire plaza at the intersection of Crenshaw and Slauson, with plans to knock it down and build it back up with a 6-story residential building atop commercial stores. This was reported by Forbes.com. Forbes.com has a good article on Nipsey Hussle as well. David Gross is also founder and CEO of Vector 90, V-E-C-T-O-R, Vector 90, a co-working space and STEM incubator for young people to gain training, professional development, and other tools to build their own businesses, So this is the type of investment that Nipsey was making in his community. He still lived in the community as well. He didn't move out to the Hamptons. He didn't move out to Beverly Hills, things like this, right? He was employing people in the community. He was investing in his community. He was buying a property in the community as well. Okay, so David Gross, also founder and CEO of Vector 90, a co-working space and STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math incubator for young people to gain training, professional development, and other tools to build their own businesses. So Nipsey Hussle invested in Vector 90 and has long had an interest in technology and hope to help bridge the gap between African American and Hispanic children in his community and technology entrepreneurs and CEOs in Silicon Valley. Nipsey Hussle owns several other businesses in the area, including a fat burger restaurant, a barbershop, and a seafood market. He had invested in the 59th Street Elementary School, giving shoes to all of the students and renovating its basketball courts and playground. Los Angeles Times had some good articles on him as well over the past few days. And there was one of the articles that I read talked about how, I'm not sure if it's in this one or another one, because I read so many over the past few days. But he didn't, when he wanted to get into hip hop, he didn't have the money to pay for engineers and things like this, right? So he learned how to use the software for recording, and he bought parts, and he built a computer. He built his own computer as well. Okay, so because he talked about how because of lack of finances, it caused him to be resourceful, and he tapped into that African genius, right? And he used that to engage in technology. Okay, so I mean, this was a brilliant brother. Okay, let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to Joe. Let's go to Joe, line 4. Hey, Joe, welcome to the African History Network show. Thanks for holding. Tell us where you're calling from.
I'm calling from Metro Detroit, and I just want to say, brother, I like listening to your show.
Oh, thanks, man.
Because you always research what you're talking about.
Oh, thank you.
If you never let nobody come in without giving you a source of information they're speaking about, which is good.
Yes.
Because you always have to know where it comes from.
Right.
And if it can be authenticated.
Right.
I just wanted to say I'm glad that you operate that way.
Oh, thanks.
Because I know for myself, a lot of stuff I should have read.
Yes.
But I don't read, but I should read concerning this reparation.
Yes.
There's a lot of information I should have read, and most people haven't read.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they can't speak intelligent about it.
Right.
But you can speak intelligent about it. And you was telling somebody that slaves don't get paid. So it ain't like we got a straight out check for $100 million.
So what I was saying, just to clarify for people just tune in, what I was saying was when you go study the history of the laws in this country, it was legal to enslave. It wasn't right, but it was legal to enslave people and not pay them. Okay, so this is why I ask people, and I ask people this question, and I've asked more than one person this question: where did you read that enslaved Africans in the U.S. were supposed to be paid? Now, I'm not saying they should have been paid, but it was legal to enslave them for their entire life and not pay them. So this is why when we move from a YouTube video approach to reparations to actual law to get something enforced, we have to understand how to make a legal argument. Okay, go ahead.
And that's important.
Yes.
That's important. See, we be all over the place because we're not focused on the pertinent part of the conversation so that what we say makes sense.
Right, right. You got to make a legal argument. You got to make a legal argument.
Legal argument.
Right.
And you got to have all your ducks lining up to make those legal arguments. You just can't go off, well, they did this to us and
right.
we're entitled to $100 million. No.
14 trillion. Yeah, yeah. You can't make an emotional argument. You got to make a legal argument. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You got to make a legal argument, and it's got to be plausible.
Yes.
So I listen to you so that I can understand what I need to understand, even though I ain't gonna do that. But at least I know.
Right. You can pass it on to other people, though. You can pass it on to other people. Yeah.
But at least I know. And when you talk about, I listen to people talk about the rapper that got killed in California.
Yeah, Nipsey Hussle. Yeah.
Yes, and they talk about him as though they was there.
Okay.
And I learned a long time ago, be slow to speak and quick to listen.
Right.
You don't have the facts, so don't talk as though you was there.
Right.
I do know that if I was a person that had the kind of money and had turned my life around in the way that I understand he turned his life around, it was a great thing that he was trying to do in his community. But, you know, you have to really think about going back into a community where you came from once you made it, because a lot of us have an issue with jealousy. We smile in your face. But a lot of us, we don't like your success. And that's funny.
Right, right.
We have to be very careful what we do, trying to help the very people. I seen something where somebody was on, or two people was on a chair. And like one person was trying to help the other person, and while he was trying to help them, he was kicking them off the chair.
Right, right. Now,
we have to be very careful about helping people and trying to do good, but we're supposed to do it, and we got to do it. We can't be afraid of none of that. I'm just saying, you know, it's a tragedy. That's
right.
all I can say about it. And it's something that we deal with in the world today, but I just, you know, I take my hat off to a brother that turned his life around, because I had a prison ministry, and I watched brothers that was in that cage.
Right.
And they come out here and they turn their life around. There's a lot of work involved.
Absolutely.
And everybody's not happy for you to do what's necessary. But I want to keep on listening to you, the show, brother. I ain't gonna take too much of your
All right,
time.
Joe.
I thank you for allowing me to listen to your show. I thank you for bringing concise and information that's plausible.
Okay, man. Okay, brother. Thanks for calling. Keep listening. All right, and now everybody should read this article. This is written by Dr. Jahi Issa and Brother Reggie Marbury. And this is from blackagendareport.com. It's called Reparations is Dead, How to Resurrect It. Reparations is Dead, How to Resurrect It. Now, this is from July 12, 2017. July 12, 2017. I did a two-part interview with Dr. Jahi Issa and Brother Reggie Marbury back in, I guess it was 2017. Both of those interviews are archived. Go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Click on the link right on the homepage, listen to podcasts. You can go back and listen to the two interviews I did with them. And they break down this history and deal with making a legal argument for reparations as opposed to an emotional argument. Okay? And they talk about how they deal with January 1st, 1808, when it became illegal to bring Africans into this country as slaves, but people kept doing it. People kept doing it. So all the Africans that came in this country from January 1st, 1808 on up until the Clotilda in 1860 in Alabama, that was all illegal. Now you have a legal argument. Now, it was still legal to enslave Africans on the plantations, but it was illegal to bring them in. Just like 1839, the Amistad, those Africans won their freedom because it was illegal for them to be brought into this country as slaves. That's another legal argument, okay? But 2017 marks 100 years since the most Honorable Marcus Garvey moved the headquarters of UNIA to New York, and 105 years since Marcus Garvey spoke at Howard University about African victims of illegal enslavement and their citizenship. Let me skip down here. Okay, according to available records aboard more than 36,000 ships over a span of almost 500 years, between 15 to 20 million Africans were brought to the Americas alive and against their will, although a rather small percentage of those Africans who made it to the Americas alive arrived in what is now called the United States. Hundreds of thousands were brought into the country and made to be commerce after federal laws made it illegal to transport sovereign nationals from Africa. After federal laws made it illegal to transport sovereign nationals from Africa. As late as 1859, there were 7 slavers regularly fitted out in New York and many more in all the larger ports. Okay, on December 2nd, 1806, in his yearly message to Congress, widely reprinted in most media outlets at the time, President Thomas Jefferson noted that the, quote, violations of human rights, end quote, attending the transnational slave trade, and called for its criminalization on the first day that was possible, January 1st, 1808, concerning Article 1, Section 9 of the U.S. Constitution. Read this article. This deals with making a legal argument for reparations, not an emotional argument, okay? BlackAgendaReport.com, name of the article is Reparations is Dead, How to Resurrect It, Dr. Jahi Issa and Reggie Mabry. You listen to 910 AM, the Superstation, WFDF, and Michael Imhotep, the African History Network show. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Are you drowning in debt? Struggling just to make minimum payments?
Okay. Everybody stand by. We'll be back in a couple minutes. Okay, if you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. Can you turn that down some in here, please, Mike? paypal.me/the AHN show. Okay, and we also have our bundle pack, our 8 DVD bundle pack, the Africans that were here before Columbus, the Africans that were here before Columbus also. We'll post a link for that as well. Okay. Ding in Australia. All right, now African American business owners, you can post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast also. Okay. Let's see here. And you can advertise with the African History Network on the podcast of our shows and through our network. Email us customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay, we'll post a link to the article again. Okay, we'll post a link of the article again. Now, we posted it on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. We'll post it here on the thread of the broadcast. Once again, the name of this article. See, this is why you have to understand history and law. You have to understand history and law. So you got to get past the emotional argument and deal with a legal argument. Name of this article, Reparations is Dead, How to Resurrect It. Okay? This is from July 12, 2017. All right. Let me see. What was the clip? We're going to skip over clip 2. Some on Mueller team allegedly state reporters troubling. Skip over that. Let's go to, I think we'll go to clip 3. Let me see. What's clip 3?
Ready?
Okay, hold on. Yeah, we'll go to clip 3. All right. Deadline White House. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, April 7, 2019. We have the phone lines lit up, 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number. If you have a question or comment, we'll go back to the phone lines in just a minute here. But people were asking about this on Facebook, so let me give you the name of this article once again, okay? Because, see, other people aren't talking about this. This is one of the few places you're going to get this type of information. This article came out a year and a half ago. Reparations is Dead, How to Resurrect It. July 12, 2017 from blackagendareport.com. Just Google that. Google the name of the article. Reparations is Dead, How to Resurrect It. It's written by Dr. Jahi Issa. Dr. Jahi Issa is a professor of Africana Studies. I forgot which college. He has a PhD in Africana Studies, African American Studies, and Brother Reggie Mabry. So I know both of these brothers. I did a 2-part interview with them back in 2017 about this topic. We went deep into it. You can listen to the interview go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And right on the home page, click on the link, listen to podcasts. Now, we have over 900 podcasts of shows and interviews going back to 2010, okay? And just search for Jahi Issa, Jahi Issa, or just search for reparations. It'll come up, okay? All right, and if you like this type of information, want to donate to the African History Network, paypal.me, paypal.me/the AHN show, or on PayPal, just send it to the AHN show at gmail.com, stands for African History Network, the AHN show at gmail.com. Or go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. On the home page, click on the yellow donate button. Okay, so I'm going to share some more of this article with you very quickly here. All right, so as late as 1859, now 1859 is 2 years before the Civil War starts. Civil War starts April 12, 1861. As late as 1859, there were 7 slavers regularly fitted out in New York, and many more in all the larger ports. On December 2nd, 1806, in his yearly message to Congress, widely reprinted in most media outlets at the time, President Thomas Jefferson noted that the, quote, violations of human rights, end quote, attending the transnational slave trade, and called for its criminalization on the first day that was possible, January 1st, 1808, concerning Article 1, Section 9 of the U.S. Constitution. There was in 1787, when the Constitution was drafted and debated on, there was a 20-year clause in the Constitution that stated that they will outlaw the importation of Africans as slaves after 20 years. So March 2nd, 1807, the Congress passes that law. It goes into effect January 1st, 1808. This is why you got to read the U.S. Constitution, people. I'm trying to explain to people, you have to understand how to make a legal argument, because I'm hearing a whole lot of BS on Facebook and YouTube, and none of it is dealing with a legal argument. Okay? And one thing I don't do is lie to our people. I'm just keeping it real. I don't engage in that emotionalism. Okay? We got to be straightforward and not play with our people's emotions. A lot of people mean well, have good hearts, but you got to understand how to make a legal argument as opposed to a moral or emotional argument. We know slavery was morally wrong, but it was legal. So how do you get legal redress, okay, when it was legal to enslave Africans and not pay them? Okay, so it's not like, I'm not sure how much you really studied about history, but it's not like there was a slave union that represented the enslaved Africans, and they negotiated wages with the slave masters. The slave masters agreed to pay wages. Then Friday, the first of the month came on Friday, and the slave masters refused to pay wages for 246 years. That's not what happened. It was legal to enslave them for their entire life and not pay them. So how do you make a legal argument? Okay, so read this article from history.com. Official website of the History Channel. 1807, Congress abolishes the African slave trade. This ties right into what I was talking about before the break. This ties right into the article from Dr. Jahi Issa and Brother Reggie Mabry. You got to understand history and you have to understand law. Congress abolishes the African slave trade. The U.S. Congress passes an act to prohibit the importation of slaves into any port or place within the jurisdiction of the United States from any foreign kingdom, place, or country. That's a direct quote. The first shipload of African captives to North America arrived at Jamestown, Virginia, August 20th, 1619. But now that's the British colonies, because the Spanish were taking Africans into territories like South Carolina going back to 1526. Because the Spanish were the second ones involved in the transatlantic slave trade, right behind the Portuguese. Okay, but we're dealing with the British colonies, not the Spanish colonies. You're two different governments. But for most of the 17th century, European indentured servants were far more numerous in the North American British colonies than were African slaves. Now, you read chapter 2 of Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr., he talks about how, see, slave statutes did not start in the British colonies until 1641 with Massachusetts, and then it comes to Virginia in 1661. Prior to that, even though you have it evolving prior to the slave statute starting, you're going to have a number of Africans who were in the status of indentured servants. Read chapter 2 of Lerone Bennett Jr.'s book Before the Mayflower. He talks about this. That first group of Africans, August 20, 1619, the status of slave don't even exist in the British colonies at that time. Now, we call them slaves because they were captured in Angola. It was a group of 350 of them captured in Angola by the Portuguese. And they were put on a ship called the San Juan Batista. The San Juan Batista gets hijacked by English pirates around the coast of Mexico. They're put on, it's 50 of them that were taken from the ships. They're taken from the Portuguese, and they're put on 2 English ships called the White Lion, Lion, and the Treasurer. The White Lion and the Treasurer are going to come into Jamestown, Virginia. In August 20th, 1619, the enslaved Africans on the Africans on the White Lion are going to be traded by the captain for food and supplies. Now, they look at so historically, they say, okay, these are the first Africans who came to this land as slaves, right? But the status of slave did not exist in the British colonies at this time. They're put into indentured servitude. About 3 to 5 years, they're freed and compensated with land. Read chapter 2 of Lerone Bennett Jr.'s book, Before the Mayflower. He breaks this down. There are other articles that deal with this history. This is why, if you heard me talk about some of my broadcasts, when Governor Ralph Northam of Virginia, when he was interviewed by what's her name on CBS News, okay, when he was interviewed by the sister on CBS News, and he said he referred to those first Africans as indentured servants, and she corrected him and said slaves. If you actually read the articles about this, and I talked about this during African American History Month, right? He talked about how he went to the site where those 29 Africans came in, Fort, I forgot the name of the fort. And he said that he referred to those Africans as slaves. And he said there was a historian there who said it's more accurate to refer to them as indentured servants. So when he said indentured servants, he's operating based upon the information given to him by a historian. People jumped on him, but if you actually study the history, the status of slave didn't exist in the British colonies at that time. Now, it existed in the Spanish colonies. You're dealing with 2 different governments. The Spanish get involved in the transatlantic slave trade before the British get involved. Okay, so read this article from USA Today. Okay, Virginia Governor Ralph Northam slammed for referring to first indentured servants from Africa instead of slaves. He wasn't talking about all the Africans who came here as slaves. He was talking about that first group. This is an example of how America needs a history lesson, because most black people don't know this history. You think white people know it? Hell no, they don't. This is why my approach to this is totally different. America needs a massive history lesson to go along with the fight for reparations, because most people, regardless of race, don't understand the history at all. When you got white people out trying to save Confederate monuments, and they say they want to do it in the name of Robert E. Lee, General Robert E. Lee, but when you study General Robert E. Lee, you find out General Robert E. Lee was against Confederate monuments after the Civil War ended, and he was against using any of the Confederate flags after the Civil War ended, including the flag that's on the Dukes of Hazzard car, which is actually not the Confederate flag. It's the Confederate battle flag in Northern Virginia under General Robert E. Lee's army. There was 3 flags that flew over the Confederate States of America, the CSA, from 1861 to 1865. That flag was not one of them. So when you see these white supremacists out with the flag that was on the Dukes of Hazzard car, and the car was called General Lee, named after a white supremacist slave owner. They're showing how ignorant they are. They are showing how they don't understand history. Now, what people are not preparing for is the backlash. See, people are not preparing for what happens when right-wing organizations take out ads on TV to tell their constituents to call their members of Congress and tell them vote no on reparations, because that's what will happen. Don't believe me? Go look at South Carolina when the fight after Dylan Roth shot and killed 9 African Americans in Mother Emanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in June of 2015, and then there was a debate in the state Congress of South Carolina to remove the Confederate battle flag from the Capitol, which was put up there in 1961. Because 1961 was the 100th year anniversary of the Civil War starting, and the Civil War started April 12, 1861 in South Carolina, and South Carolina was the first state to secede from the Union December 20th, 1860. What happened in that debate? You had an organization that sent out 50,000 robocalls to white people in South Carolina, telling them to call their members of the state legislature and tell them vote no to take down a Confederate battle flag. Now that was over a flag. What do you think will happen over reparations? So what I'm talking about is we have to understand the strategy. Get past the emotionalism. You got to understand the strategy to defend against the backlash. And this is what a lot of people are not talking about. I'm not into playing games with our people. No, we can't deal with that. We have to actually understand strategy. And this is why America has to have a massive history lesson, because most people don't understand history. I travel across the country and do lectures. Most of our people don't understand the history of slavery. Most white people don't understand the history of slavery because we've all been miseducated. Okay, so read this article from USA Today. And I talked about this during my African American History Month presentations in the month of February. I did 15 presentations in February. A lot of them in African American churches because they invited me in. They wanted me to do presentations. Virginia Governor Ralph Northam slammed for referring to first indentured servants from Africa instead of slaves. Okay, and he was interviewed on CBS this morning. Okay, we all saw that clip. Now, what happened was people didn't get past the headline. They were all just shocked at things like this, right? If you actually read the damn article, he's interviewed by Gayle King, right? If you actually read the article, he said, then we'll go back to the phone lines. He said that, let me see here. Let's go to the exact quote. Let's see. Okay, so he went to the fort and he talked to a historian there. Let's see. Okay, at the start of the interview, Governor Ralph Northam referred to the first indentured servants from Africa who arrived in Virginia. He's talking about that group of 29 Africans who was actually it was actually an English ship, not a Dutch ship. Captain John Roth recorded it as a Dutch ship to try to cover up the fact that it was an English ship. When you study this history, you find this out. And he faces backlash from critics accusing him of minimizing historic horrors with a euphemism for slavery. Okay? And let's see. So he was interviewed by Gayle King, and let's skip down here. Okay, let's go to what his response was, because this is what people didn't talk about in the headlines. Okay, others defended and said he was correct about the status of Africans who arrived in Virginia in 1619. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so the actual status of the first African captives brought to Virginia is still debated by historians. About 20 African captives arrived at Port Comfort in 1619, what will become Virginia. They were taken from their villages in present-day Angola, forced onto Portuguese slave ships, then stolen by English pirates. Their arrival in the New World was logged by John Rolfe, R-O-L-F-E, the widower of Pocahontas. Okay? Because Pocahontas ends up going to England. She's renamed as Rebecca. Pocahontas was a traitor to her people. If you haven't figured this out, you go study Pocahontas. She was a traitor to her people. I'm just telling you. I don't care who don't like it. I'm telling you the truth. She was a traitor to her people. She chose as European over her own people. Quote, they had indentured people in Virginia, and some people may have seen Africans just like they saw other indentured people. Let me see, where is the actual quote? It's in here. Okay, Northam, here it is. Governor Northam explained that he recently visited Fort Monroe, the site where those first Africans arrived, and was corrected by a historian after he referred to them as quote unquote enslaved. A historian advised me that the use of indentured was more historically accurate, not for all Africans coming to this country. That first group of 20 and odd in 1619. Hell, this is before slave statutes even start in Massachusetts. They ain't start in Massachusetts till 1641. That's after the court case of John Punch of 1640 in the colony of Virginia. And then there's a court case in 1655 of John Caser. You got to study those court cases that lead to these laws being put in place. This is what I'm saying. We don't understand history. This is why you have to understand history and law if you actually want to get reparations. Now, if you want to debate on YouTube, keep doing what you're doing. If you actually want to get something tangible, you have to understand history and law and understand how to make a legal argument. Okay, so he said a historian advised me that the use of indenture was more historically accurate. Now, they go in and cite historians in here who agree with them as well. See, it's a nuanced history. The way that slavery evolved in the 13 colonies, the 13 British colonies, is not the way we think it evolved. Read chapter 2 of Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr. because he breaks down this nuanced history there. Okay, so we'll post this link here on the thread of the broadcast as well on Facebook. Once again, it's an article from USA Today. There's some other articles. We'll post some other articles later tonight because I went through, you have to go look at our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, and look at the videos I did surrounding Governor Northam because I dealt with all this history there and I broke this down. I even called in the Reverend Al Sharpton's radio show February 13th, 2019, tried to explain it to him. And, you know, it didn't work. Even though I'm citing sources and providing evidence, he didn't quite understand what I was talking about. Okay, so maybe next time. All right, let's go back to the phone lines. Let's go to one on line 2. Hey, one, welcome to the African History Network show. Thanks for holding. Thanks for calling. Tell us where you're calling from.
I'm calling from Glenwood in Detroit.
Okay, Detroit. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, thank you. Peace, brother.
Hey, peace. Thank you.
That's my man was in the mindset, like, for knowledge, you know.
Yes.
God, the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Good is here, brother.
Mm-hmm.
I want to touch on something real quick.
Go ahead.
Slavery took all of that. Spookism. That's what we suffer from. Spookism.
Mm-hmm.
We're scared of everything.
Okay.
Guns in America. Hold up, real quick. Guns in America. And laws.
Mm-hmm.
Those are three things that we really got to understand, guys. 1 billion guns in this country.
How many guns?
This country is scared to death of guns.
How many guns in this country?
1 billion.
Okay, well, where'd you get that information from? Because the information I see from Scientific American says there's 300 million guns in this country. Half of the guns are owned by 3% of the population.
I'm a big cross-reference, right? I do several researches.
Okay. What source are you citing? What source are you citing that says there are 1 billion guns in this country?
I could forward that information to you. I don't have it right in my hand.
Okay, go ahead.
I research all day as well as you. I just, you know.
Okay.
I don't get paid for it, but
I don't get paid for this either. I don't get paid to do this show. I don't get paid to do none of this. I'm not attacking you. I just want people to understand. I don't get paid to do none of this. That's part of the problem. But go ahead. Oh no, I understand. But I just want you to understand. Yeah, I just want you to understand. I don't get paid to do this show. But go ahead, man. You know, you and I are cool, baby. But go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. No problem.
I'm not trying to dispute what you say.
Oh, no. I understand that.
I know what I do in terms of research. I sell books.
Right.
I make books, brother.
Right.
Absolutely, man. You just be in there.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't just grab anything out the sky or find. I don't do that.
Right. I understand.
Quote, a needs reference also would be quote them, and I check. I read all kind of publications.
Right.
All of that.
Right.
They're all different.
Right.
I know there's guns everywhere, brother.
No, I agree with that.
People.
I agree with that.
In my own eye.
Right. Right.
How about that?
Right.
You know, and I know he's scared as heck of everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and when I saw Nipsey Hussle, he was not scared.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have an American spookism in him.
Right.
That's what I saw.
Right.
I saw he had his father. He was one generation off this soil.
Right.
And this is what they do here. They scare the hell out of you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you look through history, the stronger walked into the fire. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, you talk about law. These people ripped up the shores and just float stuff out their mouth. I hereby will claim this my land.
Oh, yeah, yeah.